Lloyd Vance's Insider Football is back on 1029 The Game, Coach Sports Digital Network. So glad everybody can be with this evening. I'm here with my usual tag team partner and co-host Kevin Midgette. How you doing, Kevin? I know you were on assignment last week. You missed all the sky is falling, Jalen Hurts is done, etc. Calls and talk. What do you think about the Eagles after that big win
Well,
over the Las Vegas Raiders?
first thing I want to start off by saying, Gray Hoodie Monday, man. I didn't know we were wearing a team uniform here.
Oh, there you go, baby. We're matching. Love it.
All geared up. Yeah, everyone's all happy now. Yeah, they're winning the Super Bowl. Everyone's lining the parade route now. All's right with the world until next week.
Yeah, it's crazy because Angel and I last week we went deep into the Philadelphia Eagles and all the talk we were hearing about Hurts is done. Yes, he had the 5 turnovers. We all know 2 on the same play, etc. And we're going to go live and local, of course, as Kevin and I are both kind of in the Philadelphia area and the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not the front page story this week, but we'll quickly go over their game and everything. But I think Jalen Hurts kind of got right in this one, Kevin. It was the Raiders. They're 2-12, and it was a get right spot for the Eagles. They end their 3-game losing streak with a shutout win. Hurts was efficient, and he only threw the ball, I think, about 15 times in this game.
Yeah, I mean, they beat the Raiders. All right, woohoo, big deal. You beat the Raiders. But I tell you what, they did what they should have done, though. They shut them out, they blew them out, left no doubt whatsoever. And that's what you have to do when you play a bad team. We call those kind of teams, they're a slump buster. They needed that slump buster right then, maybe to try to get right.
Yeah, I agree with you that it was a situation where the Eagles kind of needed to reboot themselves and get ready because the playoffs are coming quickly. It's looking like the Dallas Cowboys are not going to make it. We'll talk a little bit about their loss to the Minnesota Vikings coming up, and it's a situation where the Eagles have to lose all their games and the Cowboys would have to win all their games, and I just don't see that happening. So I think the Eagles will make it, but as we said, what should fans kind of point to in terms of this victory, other than all the Hurts talk? Do you think that they are getting healthy enough on the offensive line? Is that an issue? They have Lane Johnson coming back, and what's it? Fred Johnson is the guy that's kind of been replacing him. How are they looking in terms of offensive line, or any other areas you're kind of looking at as they make their playoff push?
I tell you what, Saquon Barkley runs for 150 yards in the game. I'll be like, all right, everything's good with the line and running the ball. Until then, I'm still not seeing it from the offensive line. But one thing they have discovered once again, Dallas Goddard's open. Look for Dallas Goddard. Use him as your linchpin, and then work on the rest of the offense.
Yeah, I think that's a good point there, and as we were saying, Kevin and I, the Eagles did a nice job taking advantage of a bad team. They win 31-0, and they're now 9-5. They're firmly into that spot where they're uh, third spot right now. The Eagles are, and they're expected to win the NFC East. So they're at Washington, at Buffalo, and then Washington to end the season. So, do you think the Eagles get tripped up in any of those games?
Yeah, they'll probably lose the Buffalo game. Buffalo righted their ship. Buffalo's still trying to win that division. They have an opportunity to with their big W. So I think that Buffalo one's going to be the one that trips them up, and they sit there and they take care of Washington a couple times.
Yeah, I do agree with you that they take care of business against the uh, Washington Commanders twice, and that Buffalo game. They need it. So, yeah, I think that's how they kind of say, okay, they'll they'll get kind of in positioning for them, but we'll see from there. But solid win for the Philadelphia Eagles. Enough with the Tanner McKee talk. The Eagles still, though, I think need to revisit Patullo and how he's running that offense. But we'll see from here. Good win for them, and they got to get it done against Washington. That's the game in Washington, and then, as Kevin said, at Buffalo and Washington and Philadelphia to finish. So we're here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coach Sports Digital Network, and we are talking about Week 15 around the National Football League. We'll just go right through the games, Kevin. A lot of great games, a lot of big stories. Obviously, we're going to get to the injuries The Atlanta Falcons on Thursday night pulled a surprise over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 29-28. Two straight wins for Atlanta, two straight losses for Tampa. Tampa's falling apart, man. And their two losses were divisional games to New Orleans and Atlanta. So is Tampa going to win this off a division?
I don't know. I tell you what, the schedule breaks for them because, as we know, with 3 games remaining in the season, Tampa and Carolina play twice. The key is who don't they play? When they don't play each other, who do they play? Rather, I should say, when they don't play each other. And Carolina is unfortunate enough to have to play Seattle, whereas Tampa Bay plays the Miami Dolphins. So if Tampa Bay can split those games against Carolina and take care of business, I don't see Carolina beating Seattle.
It's going to be interesting because Atlanta, they're playing spoil right now, and in Tampa Bay, yeah, they're still in that number 4 spot, and someone's going to win that awful division. But Tampa Bay at Carolina, so we'll find out. It's either them or the Panthers at Dolphins, and then Carolina in the season. So it may be a situation where it comes down at week 18 because both these teams are just kind of leaking oil, and somebody's got to win that division. And Baker Mayfield played well in this game. He got McMillan back. He got Mike Evans back in this one. Evans was very upset, slamming his helmet against the wall and leaving early. So he's making some plays. I wanted to ask you about Emeka Ibuka. What happened to him, man? He's just falling apart. I thought he was going to be rookie of the year.
Well, in a lot of sports, you'll see it. Guys hit the rookie wall. They're not used to playing, especially their first season, like in the league. It's like you're not used to that kind of competitiveness week after week after week. And some guys, I mean, their first year, it takes a grind on them. And with Tampa as well, I mean, they've had wide receivers in and out. They asked a lot of them early. So maybe it's the point now he's deferring maybe to Godwin being back, to Mike Evans being back. He's falling down the pecking order.
Yeah, it's crazy how it all shook out. And I thought he was going to get the award, and I think it's going to be, Ted McMillan. And then I wanted to ask you after this one, the presser was interesting because I've been in a lot of press conferences. You've been to them. Todd Bowles lost his, he lost his stuff up there. Expletive filled presser where he was like, "We effed up and I'm sick of this F and all this stuff." So, do you think Bowles is going to retain his job even if they make the playoffs, not make the playoffs?
If they make the playoffs, I think he keeps the job because that would be 5 years in a row that team's won the division. That being said, it's kind of refreshing to see somebody pull a Dennis Green, Jim Mora kind of thing. You want to see somebody like that show that kind of passion. So yeah, I dug seeing it, man. It kicked it old school for me.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's crazy how this has happened, and Dennis Green, he would have been proud of that. Todd Bowles is he was just upset. We'll see. So we're here on Lloyd Vance Inside Football 102.9 The Game, Coast Sports Network. Running down the games with Kevin Midgette. Kevin, what do you think in terms of? Why don't you? We're having audio things here, so why don't you talk a little bit about the Bills against the Patriots, and I'll be right back.
Sure. Bills and Patriots, once again, comes down to a game where Buffalo had to have this game with any hopes of winning the division. New England came out unbelievable. Drake May ran for 2 touchdowns early. They had a 3-touchdown lead in the game. And as everyone likes to say, including Lloyd as well, Josh Allen had to put the cape on. Josh Allen puts the cape on. Next thing you know, bam, they're back in the game. Cook gets a couple touchdowns. Knox has a couple touchdowns. Buffalo is legit that team. It is not over until the scoreboard reads all zeros on the clock. So, yeah, it was a big win for Buffalo to come back and get that one.
All right, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm not hearing that echo anymore, everybody. I don't know what that was. But we are, yeah, and that game was interesting because I'm watching it with Nate here at the house, and he's a Bills fan, and they're down 21-0. They're down 21-7 at the half, and then they explode for 28 points in the second half. And you know, New England, yeah, they had a 10-game winning streak, but this showed you maybe they scored too fast with like Travion scoring those long, quick touchdowns and everything. But it just showed you the grit of the Bills, and then you just start talking about the inexperience of this Patriots team in terms of Mike Vrabel and him getting this situation together, and is Drake May really an MVP? They kept chanting it over and over again in the game. Drake May 14 in 20, of 23, 155, no TDs. He had an interception in this one. I did think that Travion Henderson did play a good game. You saw Diggs make some nice plays, but it wasn't like on that Sunday night football game where he just dominated his whole team.
Nah, it's more of a thing. I think you're absolutely correct. It's going to be sort of the maturation process for the New England Patriots. They haven't been in this situation. They don't know how to close teams out like that. Buffalo, they've been through the ringer. They've been sitting there run by all kinds of versions of Baltimore and Kansas City over the years. So they know what it takes to win these close games at the end. And I think that was evident on this past Sunday.
Yeah, and it now I really think a big thing is Sean McDermott making that playoff push that we've talked about in the past with the Bills. And they still have a chance in terms of winning this division. Like last year, McDermott and the Bills won 7 of the last 9. And in 2023, they had a 5-game winning streak going into the playoffs. And a big thing, Kevin, is the elephant in the room, and we'll get to it in a minute. The Chiefs are no longer going to be there, and they've always kind of been the Bills' kryptonite. And the Bills, even though right now they're a wild card, I think they could be a dangerous wild card. They could almost be like the Ravens were the one of those years where they won a Super Bowl, where they were going on the road and winning all those games. You remember Shannon Sharp was leading the way. But yeah, what do you think in terms of the Bills as a potential wild card?
I think that's a team nobody wants to see come to their home stadium. You won't want any parts of the Buffalo Bills that first playoff game. Yeah, I mean that's a tough out. I mean they're at home, they're a tough out. They're on the road, they're a tough out. You kind of want the. I mean, everyone who's in the playoffs, of course, can win a game, but you don't want to deal with the experience that they have in the playoffs in that first round.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of my loyal texters, Byron, is on, and he said, "Oh Lord, the Pats fans were thumping their chests until they realized the game wasn't over." LOL, and I agree with it. You got these teams, these younger teams, they have to learn how to finish the job, and that's the thing about the Bills. They've been in these situations before. These games that come down to the big moments, and let's face it, I think in the playoffs, Josh Allen's going to be the most experienced quarterback, and I think that's going to be a big factor in these things. So, in looking at their remaining schedule, the Buffaloes is at Cleveland. They should win that one. They have Philadelphia. That's going to be an interesting game. The Jets to end the season, and then New England, who's a game ahead of them. New England is at Baltimore, at the Jets, and then Miami. What do you think? Do you think that the Bills can catch them for the division, or they're going to have to go in as a wild card?
I think they can catch them for the division because once again, now we have to see how New England comes back after blowing a big lead, which would have basically given them the division. So now they have to deal with that for the first time. You know, dealing with the emotions that go from blowing the big lead. What did we do wrong? The self doubt might even creep in a little bit. Are we ready yet? Are we, we're here too early. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle it.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I know Nate's excited about his Bills in terms of that was a huge victory for him. And I'll tell you, though, early on in the game, he was screaming and yelling. He's like, "We lost this game." We lost. And then, and slowly but surely, it his attitude turned as they started putting it together. And when you look at Buffalo, I was on Rich Q's show earlier today. He was kind of having me look at all the contenders and talk about like weak spots or strategy for the upcoming playoffs. And the thing is with the Bills, it's Cook. You know, Cook running the football. Their offensive line's doing a great job, and Josh Allen. He's been inconsistent at some spots, but most of the time he puts on the Superman cape, and he's overcome those 12 interceptions that he's thrown. leading quarterback rusher in the league, and picking his spots right, just getting the ball out of his hands. Do the Bills have enough weapons, though, in terms of Gabe Davis and Shakur and the two tight ends? They have enough weapons to make a serious run here.
I think they have enough weapons to get out of the AFC. I'll put it that way. It used to be flip flop. It used to be AFC had the more specialty players, guys who could make big plays. You know, they had those kind of guys. Where now I think it's flipped to the NFC, where the NFC has the more stronger offensive teams that can hang points. So I don't know if Buffalo got into a situation via the Super Bowl if they could do that with the Shakirs and the Knoxes and the Keon Colemans. I don't know if they can do that there, but can they get to the Super Bowl through the AFC? Definitely.
Yeah, and if they can finally make the Super Bowl after so many years of not being there, that'll be huge. So even though no Chiefs, no Mahomes, they definitely got to stay the course, and we'll see how they do. Conversely, what about the Patriots? Do they clean this thing up? Is this just an aberration, or is this the start of something going wrong for them? All I can think of is they go down to, or they host Miami that last game, and somehow Miami beats them, and the Patriots fans are going nuts.
Well, this is part of the reason why you brought in Mike Vrabel, not only for the experience that he has, but the fact that he's been in those games as a player. He knows how to relate to those guys and what they're going through and get them in the position to win those games and not let up and, get beaten by somebody like Miami the last game of the season. They have the pieces of the puzzle there. It's just, will they be able to, finish the job?
Yeah, good points there, Kevin. And when we're talking about the AFC, we always like to look at the current picture. Denver's 12-2. We'll talk about them in a minute. They're at number one. You have New England at, I'm sorry, Denver at one, New England at two. Jacksonville, we got to get to them. They are number three. The Steelers, who are going to play tonight, they're at four. Then you have the Chargers. We'll get to them. They look good at five. Buffalo, we were just talking about them. They're at six. And then you have the Houston Texans, who are really an upstart. Their team you definitely have to keep your eye on. So the AFC, interesting, but it's Kevin, it's a changing of a guard, and Nate was all over me about it. Rich Q was like, I want on all platforms, all media, Lloyd, that you're on. I want it on X. I want it on TikTok. I want it everywhere. Say the Chiefs are done. And you know what? I had to say, unfortunately, I kept picking them, and I thought Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes could get this thing together, but their ride's over. And the thing is about them, they're going to miss the playoffs for the first time since 2014. Uh, they had won the division 9 straight years, and we're going to see if what can happen here. But yeah, losing Mahomes on top of this, it was the tip of the iceberg. So, what do you think about the Chiefs? Big win, though. You got to talk about the Chargers. They won 16-13 over the Chiefs. 4 straight wins for the Chargers. Third straight loss for the Chiefs. Obviously, I talked about Mahomes, but Jesse Minter's defense did a great job. They sacked Mahomes 5 times in this game.
I think it's one of those things, Lloyd, that with Mahomes, the injury that he suffered, I mean, he's going to miss all of next year as well. So if you're Kansas City going forward, what are you going to do? You need to bring in a quarterback that can play. You're Andy Reid at this point in your career. You have to reinvent this team in some way. He hasn't been a fan of really any of the running backs that he's had over the years. You're going to have to bring in a quarterback at least for next year. Unless you're just writing off that season as well. So they got to decide what they're going to do going forward. I mean, Kansas City, when they were healthy, they weren't that good. They were an average, middling team at best. And the Chargers, they don't get enough press, I think, just for the fact that Denver and New England sucked it all up. Everyone's been riding those two teams right there. And even Houston coming up right now has been getting some press. But Chargers just go out, they play good football, they're winning games, they're peaking at the right time. So, I mean, you might want to give Harbaugh a little credit as much as most people don't like to. He's done a good job with the team.
They have, and Jesse Minter's defense. I talked about them. It- They held Kansas City 239 total yards, 13 points in this one. The Chiefs had 2 big turnovers in this one, and we're going to have to see in terms of the Chiefs, are they able to come back from this? It could be a situation where once again I think it's a retool. I don't think it's a total tear down. So they do got to bring in a young quarterback because that last throw by Gardner Minshew was just awful. So where Derwin James gets a pick, ends the game. But what do you think in terms of, is it a rebuild or a real retool?
I think it's a retool. You have some money locked up on some of these guys here where they're going to stay. And you have some young pieces on offense as far as the skill set positions. But like I just said earlier, it's like he has not found a running back yet. Edwards Hilaire experiment that didn't work out. You sit there, you bring in all these different guys. Now all of a sudden Pacheco's your lead back again. You're using Kareem Hunt for more carries than he should get in a game. So and he needs to figure that out. And you need to bring in Kelsey's replacement. They probably already have with Noah Gray there, maybe. But at the same time, you have to utilize him.
Yeah, it was interesting you brought up Pacheco because 11 rushes for 21 yards, and he just was not getting it done. And Mahomes, he was scrambling, he was fighting, but that offensive line just got a lot of injuries, and it's a situation where that's where they probably should look first in the draft, try to find someone to build upon to go with Justin Simmons. So tough loss for the Chiefs. Uh, Mahomes, I think he'll attack his rehab, Kevin. So I think he'll at least be back by uh, I'd say missed maybe the first 4 games. So we'll see. But you could just see it was like, wow. It reminded me of, and I was telling Rich this earlier. It reminded me of like Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. That invincibility was gone. And they were physical. They knocked him out, and then it's like, wow, we got to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, definitely. And Andy's also been getting lucky as well because Mahomes has been so durable that you can carry Carson Wentz as your backup, Gardner Minshew as your backup. And it's like, nah, you really need someone who can step in and play. And that's one thing he's going to have to change for next year.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew's awful. I think maybe they should find a viable backup out there. And maybe somebody that has a skill set of Patrick Mahomes. So we're here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. I'm here with Kevin Midgette, going over the games, talking about all these injuries and the big stories around the National Football League. We just talked about Patrick Mahomes. The Jacksonville Jaguars, they took care of business again against the awful New York Jets in this one. The Jets are terrible, Kevin. The Jacksonville Jaguars, this is their 5th game in a winning streak. They're now in the driver's seat in the AFC South. Uh, Trevor Lawrence, 330 passing yards, 51 yards rushing, 6 total touchdowns in the game. He was in total control. Have they turned a corner? Should we start buying in their stock?
Yeah, I think you should. And it's because that defense is playing well also. Etienne has been hitting the end zone left and right lately, not only just his past game. And Trevor Lawrence has played well. As much as we, like to jump on him from time to time because he's the guy who signed that first big contract and he was getting paid the money and he's delivering right now. And the one thing I know is one of the guys in my fantasy football league for money, he had him on the bench this week. He didn't play Trevor Lawrence, so he had to sit there and take those 6 touchdowns on the bench. That's a tough beat, man.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy because we're trying to see exactly who the pretenders are and the contenders. And Trevor Lawrence, I've always been like, never lived up to all the hype, but he's doing a great job this season, and they're 10-4. He's 9 TDs, 0 interceptions last 3 games, and as I said, 5-game winning streak for them. The Jets. Can you just thank God you're not a fan of that organization because I just don't see them ever getting better. Um, in terms of the draft, we said about the Jets. The Giants, maybe we'll get to their game, but the Giants have the number 1 overall pick. Should the Giants trade it? It's looking like Mendoza, who's coming out of Indiana, the Heisman Trophy winner, is probably going to go to the Raiders at 2. But what should the Giants do there? Some people are saying, oh, get Mendoza and trade Dart.
No, not at all. I mean, you drafted Dart for a reason. You want to see if the kid can play. Now, a team like the Giants, they need a lot of help. So what you should do is, if you want to trade down, get some package deals going where you can get multiple picks for that, number one spot. I just think it's something the Cleveland Browns would do. You sit there and draft a quarterback with your first pick, then take another quarterback the next year with your first pick. So it just makes no sense to me if they would do that. So, I mean, if you're looking forward, I think about it also. If you're the Giants, you already have your wide receiver that you drafted, Malik Neighbors. You got Cam Scatterbo and you got Jackson Dart. Mind you, two of the guys are injured and they haven't really been able to do anything with them. But at the same time, it's going forward, you have other needs, other pressing needs of that. If you want to work on that offensive line, maybe you want to add something else. So if they do that, they'll be all right. The Jets, I mean, you could just really mushroom cloud that whole organization. They've got nothing going on for them. They had Garrett Wilson hurt all year. Brees Hall has been not what everyone thought he was going to be. So you sit there and you keep bringing out these quarterbacks. I mean, the quarterbacks are terrible. Their quarterbacks are basically guys who would barely start in big college programs, let alone an NFL team at this point. But it's one of those things, though. You got to think about it. It's like you have this chance to get this number one pick, and everyone's just quarterback thirsty. Everyone wants to take a quarterback with their first pick. It's the sexy thing to do. And sometimes there's bad quarterback drafts, and you sit there and you grab guys, and they're out of the league within 3 years. And then you get other quarterback drafts where everyone turns out to be a good player. So it's going forward. It's like if I'm the Jets, I have to take a quarterback. If I'm the Giants, there's no way I'm taking a quarterback with my first pick. But also, if we got to look at it going this way right now, it's like if you have the number one pick in the draft, I mean, other guys, you got to think who's up there because a lot of guys took quarterbacks last year. I mean, New Orleans looks like they're doing all right with their pick right there. He's playing well. I mean, mind you, it was against Carolina in the week before he played well. But everyone who's taken a quarterback, I mean, Cleveland took two. You got Shedeur Sanders and you got Dylan Gabriel. And I don't see anyone really. I don't care who you draft and put in Cleveland right now. Nobody's winning with that team. Not offensively. I mean, defensively, they're kept in games by Myles Garrett and the rest of the company there. But going forward as a quarterback there, I mean, you're going to take your lumps before you actually get to do something. So going forward, like I said, it's like I don't know if I would take a quarterback with a one pick unless I was somebody in dire straits like the Jets.
Yeah, I haven't started looking at the pre-draft process and looking who's available and everything, but it seems the majority of the good quarterbacks are going back to school, and I do like Mendoza. He had a good effort against Indiana, won a Big Ten title first time, and he beat Ohio State, and we'll see how he turns out. Seems like a nice young man. We'll see. Hopefully, he's got some killer instinct. Reminds me a little too much of like Joey Harrington or somebody like that, where he's a nice kid. And is he going to be able to lead a football team? But we'll see. I think, unfortunately for that young man, he's going to end up with the Raiders.
I mean, it could be worse. I'll tell you what, though, he's better than the kid from Vanderbilt, man. You ever see somebody's stock drop so much after the Heisman Trophy presentation? He was sitting there bad mouthing the Heisman voters, bringing signs out to the club with him and his brothers, and he's like, F Indiana this and everything else. It's like, wow, man, you're really doing a lot to enhance your image right now. That
Yeah,
was a horrible move.
yeah, it was interesting because he said he loved Johnny Manziel when they and I was like, oh, that's not someone you want to emulate. You're a smallish quarterback, you know. Uh, and then he was in the club partying with the girls and all that stuff. Yeah, where's your focus, young man? So we'll see how he turns out. But we're here on Lloyd Vance here inside Football on 1029 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. Everybody, thanks for working through my audio problems. We're still seeing how it's going here. Running through these games, we were talking about the draft process because of the Jets and their awfulness. They got thumped by the Jacksonville Jaguars 48-20, and we'll see how that goes. The next game I wanted to hit on is let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. They shut out the Cincinnati Bengals 24-0. Uh, I was actually surprised here because I thought the Bengals would play a lot better in this game. But a big story leading up to this game was Joe Burrow. He's kind of desolate, desolate in terms of I don't know if I want to be here, and uh, this I'm getting beat up. I'm not having fun. Well, it sounded a lot like Carson Palmer when he was at the end with Cincinnati Bengals before he retired, and then they traded him. Is this situation where the Bengals got to worry about Joe Burrow coming back? And then talk about the Ravens. Was this a get right situation for them?
The Ravens did what they usually do. Cincinnati. I got to see part of that game actually. Cincinnati had some opportunities early, couldn't turn anything into positive yards or even like points for themselves when they had the opportunity early. Then once the Ravens got that lead, I mean that was it. It was a cold day in Cincinnati, and everyone wanted to go home. So I mean, the Ravens needed that game. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, Cincinnati, and then I see Burrow says he wants to play the rest of the games of the season and all. Well, kudos for him, you know. But yeah, there's only so many of those Cincinnati winners that you can really take when you're losing, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the offensive line's been a problem for years. And other than Trent Brown Jr., they really just don't have any. Orlando Brown Jr., I just don't think they have any other guys to help protect him. He's been hit early and often. And then that defense isn't helping him in terms of just stopping another team. Hendrickson got his money, but he's going to be a free agent. And then I think they're going to, Hendrickson will be another place. Watch for Philadelphia next season, but their defense just didn't have a lot of teeth. And what do you think about Zach Taylor? Is he going to survive this?
There's a possibility just for the fact with the Burrow injury, but at the same time, I mean, they had chances to win games that would have still kept them in the mix when Flacco was there, and the team they choked 2 games in a row. They could have easily won those games. So I mean, if I'm him at this point, do I want to go somewhere else? You know, it's like you're going to wheel me out here for Cincinnati one more year. So I mean, that one's a coin flip right there. I could see him leaving though.
Yeah, and you got Mike Brown. I just wonder about is he going to want to pay a coach that is not there? So he gave him an extension. I believe he's under contract next season. So we'll see how the Cincinnati Bengals do. The big thing with them, obviously, is they're just kind of they live up to their rep. They're cheap, man. You know what I mean? I hate to be like that. Their scouting department, they don't do a good job there because it's mostly family driven, and it's a real small scouting staff, and they always keep picking the wrong players. I mean, this guy Shamar Stewart, he just looks like he's a bust right now. He held out, and then they get him into camp, and he really just has not done a lot for them. They were hoping he'd replace Hendrickson, but a lot of holes on the Bengals, and that's why they're a 3-11 team. The Ravens, they get it done. Van Noy had that big pick six, and he hands it off to Gilman. Is Orr's defense, are they ready for prime time? Because the Ravens, they got some big games coming up, and can Ravens fans say, okay, they're back in the mix?
Not if they're being serious, but yeah, they can win the division though. I mean, you can't tell me that Pittsburgh's such a dynamo that Baltimore's out of it. Baltimore can get to the playoffs, and then another thing with Baltimore, you get a team like that, and you get Lamar just seems off though. The past month or so, he just seems off. I don't know if he's banged up or what, but if you get a team like Baltimore and they have nothing to lose, and you get them in the first round, that's a scary matchup as well.
Yes, and we know Lamar Jackson's 3-5 in the postseason. So, but getting there will be accomplishment for them. The thing is, Kevin, New England at Green Bay at Pittsburgh. That's their end of 3 game schedule. So that may be a daunting task. I still think that the Steelers with Miami at Detroit at Cleveland and then Baltimore they'll probably string together more wins, but it may come down to that last game of the season between these teams. So right now, would you handicap it the Steelers? And do you think the Steelers win tonight, by the way, against Miami?
Tomlin needs 2 more wins, 2 more wins, or or a win and a tie. I should say, so he can get that 500 record again. If I was leaning in one direction, just with the schedule left, I would lean towards Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh picking up the W tonight. Pittsburgh loses tonight now; that's all out the window. The question I have for the people in the Baltimore area, though, that I speak with, if Baltimore does not make the playoffs, is this the end of the Harbaugh era there after all these years?
Yeah, that's a good point, and everybody's going to ask that question. You know, Dick Cass, the president there, Steve Bisciotti, who's the owner. You know, they've always had a good relationship with Coach Harbaugh, and the GM. He's been there for a number of years with him as well. After he took over from the former tight end Ozzie Newsome. So, it's a situation where they've had that triumph in place for so long. It might just be like, okay, just go with the old again. But I do agree with you. There are some questions in terms of the Ravens. They got to get younger at key spots. They got to get some more playmakers from Lamar Jackson. Zay Flowers is good, but he's inconsistent. Uh, Andrews, a tight end, I don't think there's much left there. Each week he's not doing much, and then the offensive line's beat up. Ronnie Stanley in and out of the lineup. He seems to be the cornerstone of that. And then the defense, Zach Orr, that's always was their calling card, where they made a lot of sacks and made people uncomfortable. But the defense is not getting sacks. So uh, in terms of the Ravens, if it doesn't end well, do they come back with the same group? Harbaugh, um, Lamar Jackson. What do you think?
The one thing, because I didn't get a chance to talk to you last week, and I'm glad you brought it up, actually, it just triggered in my mind. A horrible, horrendous signing by the Baltimore Ravens was extending Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews for 3 years, over $30 million for a guy who I believe is 30 years old, and he's having his worst yards per game season since he's been a pro. It's like, why would you extend that guy for 3 years? That is a ridiculous bad signing. I mean, I don't get it. So, I mean, they're obviously committed to bringing him back. And it's like Baltimore with a wide receiver has been a question for what, 5, 6 years now, 7 years? Since they had Steve Smith Jr. there when he was older. It's like they've been looking for a wide receiver to come in and bring in Bateman and all these other guys. So they've always been trying. And Lamar's mentioned like the Donovan McNabb shell of having like the Pinkston and Thrash combos. It's like, go out and get that guy a wide receiver and see what he can do.
Yeah, and it's crazy, Kevin, because he's had to do it by himself. And as you said, he's getting beat up. He's not old yet. I think he's still only like 28, but it's just having to carry too much on his shoulders in terms of this offense. And even Derrick Henry does not look right. Yes, he's probably going to get over 1,000 yards, but they need to probably say, okay, what's next after him? Even if they bring him back, have him be more of a short yardage and the goal line. And thus, so lots to think about for the Baltimore Ravens. Not buried yet, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, we'll see how they do. They are uh, a half a game ahead of them. If they beat Miami tonight, the Steelers, which I expect them to because it's a cold night in Pittsburgh, and then you got Miami coming up, and then Waddle had an illness, and Tua, they're probably going to pressure him into making mistakes. So I'll go with the Steelers tonight. But yeah, we'll see who's going to win that division. But as you said, Mike Tomlin, he always seems to survive getting that 500 record. Aaron Rodgers actually played pretty well last week. We talked about the 284 yards passing, which was a season high. But the Steelers or the Ravens, I don't think either of them are going anywhere if they win that division. So good win for the Ravens. Shutout one, and the Bengals, they're in big trouble. So we're here on Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on 102.9, the Game Coast Sports Digital Network, running through the games here with Kevin. The Houston Texans, there's a dangerous team, Kevin. Now 9-5. They thumped the Arizona Cardinals 40-20. I mean, the score it could have been worse, but they kind of called it off. Uh, Houston was a 9.5 point favorite. They cover that number. The over, they scored 60 points in this game. I mean, they're on a 6-game winning streak, and Arizona's on a 6-game losing streak. The only good thing about Arizona is Jacoby Brissett and Michael Wilson are winning a lot of people some fantasy competitions with their late game heroics in garbage time.
Yeah, Houston. I mean, C.J. Stroud, he's playing a lot better. Like, he started out the year, we all know he fell off last year a little bit, the little sophomore jinx kind of thing. He bounced back. Even the beginning of the season, he wasn't really playing as well as he is right now. So it's taken him some time to get it right. I still think there's questions with Houston at running back. I don't think they've really established that with the Nick Chubb injury. Also, Woody Marks banged up. But their defense alone is going to keep them in most of these games. So they're not asking for them to, basically put up 30, 40 points a game. So, yeah, they're a tough team as well.
And the thing about Houston is C.J. Stroud, as you were saying, he's finally, he's not forcing passes. He's throwing some nice balls. Collins had a TD right off to shoot that first drive for them, and then Schultz is playing pretty well at the tight end position. They need somebody else to step up. Obviously, Tank Dell not there this season has been a big thing for them, but the calling card is D'Amico Ryan's defense. I mean, that defense is just ridiculous. They're just thumping people, particularly Will Anderson Jr. And then you have Hunter on the other side. You have Stingley. You have another good corner, and then Petrie. It just goes on and on with this defense. Al Shire, linebacker. So they could be a tough team in terms of they're probably going to be a wild card at 9-5 because Jacksonville's there at 10-4 above them. Jacksonville down the stretch. Big game this week at Denver, at Indianapolis, who we'll get to in a minute. That's the other big story of the week. Obviously, the Colts, and then Tennessee. So that schedule's kind of light, in my opinion, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they will probably hold on to win this division. And then Houston, conversely, they have the Raiders, who they should take care of business with. Big game, like kind of a playoff eliminator against the Los Angeles Chargers, and then they have the Colts to end the season. So anything else with that AFC South before we talk about the big thing in the AFC South, Kevin?
Tell you what, the division's a lot better than we thought it was going into the season. I'll give them that.
Yeah, and it's a competitive division, but everybody was talking about this division for only one reason. And the Seattle Seahawks now are 11-3. They were over the Indianapolis Colts, who are 8-6. 18-16. Yes, the game winner was kicked by Myers, a 56-yarder with 18 seconds left. One of 6 field goals by Myers, so good day kicking for him. But everybody's talking about, and this guy, you and this guy may be around the same age, man. Grandpa Philip Rivers, man, he comes out. The helmet's a little tighter, the jersey, he's looking a little chunky out there, but he was battling. And the Colts, they almost won this one. They kicked a 60-yard field goal, but they left 45 seconds on the clock, and Sam Darnold drove Seattle down the field. Talk about Rivers in this game, and is he going to be able to survive at 44 years old?
The one thing I will say about Philip Rivers, there's two things that popped in my head when he came back. One is, as soon as he comes back, he restarts the clock on the Hall of Fame. So it's like, all right, now you got to wait another 5 years. Am I really trying to come back for a couple games, to delay that? But that's on him. That's his call. And I figured out what the driving force was. 10 kids at home. I'll go back. I'll let 300-pound men hit me, and so I don't have to sit there and have you play with my remote control and keep changing the channels on me. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'll go back and play. And the thing that's the best one they could bring in. Okay, I don't blame the Colts for trying it. It's like, all right, we had a good season. We're trying to get in the playoffs. Still bring someone in. The funniest thing I thought about the whole scenario was the person most upset that I heard about it, Cam Newton, 36 years old. What, I can't get a phone call? That's how you left the league, man. Nobody even wants you to come in there for mop-up duty. Now we'll get Philip Rivers, man. We'll do that.
Yeah, what about me? That's what Cam's saying. But I was thinking the same lines with Philip Rivers. He now gets 10 more years of health care
Yeah.
for himself, his wife, and those 10 kids. So, Grandpa was out there and he was playing tough. And it was a situation where he did better than I thought, Kevin. He threw a TD. He got hit. He got up, and he made some nice throws. He made some bad throws, but he kept ticking. The old Timex commercial. He took a lick and kept on ticking. We'll see if he makes it through the rest of the season. The Colts are on the outside looking in. They now play. They have San Francisco. They have Jacksonville, and then at Houston. So we'll see how Philip Rivers survives this, but a good win for Seattle. A lot of field goals, though. Seattle's got to learn to finish drives if they want to compete with the rest of the teams out there. But it was a good win for them. Myers was kicking the ball very well. So 18-16 win for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's keep moving here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football 1029 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. By the way, everybody, you can now find us on the Odyssey app along with all of the Coastal Sports shows. Just search Sports Digital Network on the Odyssey app. The Dallas Cowboys. They blew their chance, Kevin, on Sunday Night Football. They lose to the Minnesota Vikings 34-26. And good J.J. McCarthy was in town.
Yeah, JJ had him going. I still can't understand though how Justin Jefferson can't get 40 yards receiving. Maybe some of us had him for at least 40 yards receiving and he couldn't get it. 8 targets, 2 receptions. I mean, Jeff Flacco fed the ball to Jamar Chase. He had double-digit targets to him. It's like, throw him screens, throw him something. You got Jefferson on the field, man. You can't get him the ball. It's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy because Justin Jefferson, everybody has him in his fantasy playoffs. And he did finally get a TD, and they called it back for, I think, holding or illegal formation. So it's like, oh, man. So I thought it was a good win for the Minnesota Vikings. Aubrey, who I have in my one league as my kicker, he missed 2 kicks, man. And I was cussing him a little bit. So, in terms of the Vikings, what are they going to continue to be spoilers? Good JJ going to show up?
I think it's going to be up and down. I think the guy basically missed his whole rookie year, and he got to come back this year and play for basically this is legit, really his rookie year, even though it's year 2, and he missed some time during this season as well. So you need to get him in there, get him knocked around a little bit, get him through some situations, and see what you have next year going in.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes with him in terms of J. You just never know what you're going to get, but it's good for the kid. Everybody was bearing him, and you got to remember he's almost like a rookie. And Dallas, Dak is going to put up his stats and everything, but they have a lot of work to do. And it's interesting because Jerry Jones is in the locker room saying, "Oh, we're close, we're close." Yeah, well, you're close to not being in the playoffs, Jerry. And the Eagles were really happy because they blew it. And there's the Eagles are not going to lose all 3 games, so we'll see how the Dallas Cowboys go. And it's interesting around the NFC East, but Dallas, I'm looking at their schedule. They have the Chargers at Washington, at the Giants. So, how do you think they're going to do in those 3 games?
Uh, the Chargers one is, the one that's going to get, that's one they could possibly win. They could possibly lose. You don't know what Dallas team's going to show up, but they can beat Washington and they can beat the Giants. So, I mean, could they win out? Yeah, but if they're in a situation, I believe they almost have to win the division now. So, somebody, decides to lose out the rest of the season, maybe they can get in a wild card, but they have to win the division for the most part, and they're not going to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Dallas Cowboys are not going to win out, and the Eagles lose. Interesting times for Dallas Cowboys and their fans, but I know Eagles fans they're like, yeah, whatever. So we're here on Lloyd Vance Inside Football on 1029, the Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. Speaking of blowing it, the Carolina Panthers lose to the Saints 20-17. It was an outright win for the Saints. They were a 2.5-point underdog. I mean, the Saints are on a 2-game winning streak. They beat Tampa Bay and Carolina. Maybe they should win this bad division. What's going on here with the Carolina Panthers?
It's what they've done all year long. They surprise you by winning a couple games here and there, and then they get some games they should win, and they sit there and lose them. And Bryce Young, he's trying to figure it out. There's some games Bryce Young looks unbelievable, and there's other games it's like, what are you doing? So, I mean, he's a young quarterback. They're a young team trying to figure it out. But the fact that they're still in it with these three games to go is actually impressive. So, I mean, I give them a puncher's chance, but, I mean, you got to think that Tampa Bay overtakes them for the division.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's crazy how Carolina, you're like, all right, they beat the Rams, and the next thing you're like, what is going on with them? you're losing these games you shouldn't. And how did you beat the Rams? That just shows you the Rams were looking past them. So good win for the Saints, and they're ruining their draft position. But we'll see how it goes from here. Um, the Niners, they just crushed the Tennessee Titans 37-24. 4 game winning streak from the Niners. And if the playoffs started today, I think the Niners play the Eagles. So that would be the big Dom Bowl. You know, if you remember him and Dre Greenlaw getting into it, and then the big fight in there and everything. So what do you think in terms of the Niners win over the Titans? Much ado about nothing.
Yeah, in one respect, but the other part is San Francisco, man. They've had a year with the injuries that they've had, and they've kept pushing through, and now they've gotten themselves in a position where guys are starting to get healthier, and now they're not going to roll over in the playoffs. So I mean, they're not going to be sitting there waiting. It's like, oh no, we're playing Philadelphia or somebody else. So yeah, they're going to be a problem, I think. Now going forward, it's like the one thing we always said is like McCaffrey is going to be healthy. Is McCaffrey going to be healthy? Yeah, he's been healthy this year, and he's been very effective for them. So as long as they can keep him on the field, keep Kittle on the field as well, Purdy's healthy. You get to wide receivers. Pearsall got hurt again. I saw that. So if they lose Pearsall for a little more time, they're used to that. So I mean, they're just rolling with the punches, and they just keep putting up W's. But also, you got to think about as well, that is probably the toughest division in the NFC this year. I mean, you take out that bum Cardinals team. Yeah, Kyler Murray, I was talking to you. You take out that bum Cardinal team right there. You got San Francisco, Seattle, and the Rams, and you got Seattle and the Rams with a big game coming up this week to see who's going to be in the front spot for that division. The Rams already own a game over Seattle at this point. So going ahead and looking forward to this, I mean, you got three teams probably coming out of the NFC West right now. You got one team coming out of the NFC East. You sit there, you throw in the Central right now. I mean, the North, I should say, old school Central. I mean, you got two coming out of there, maybe three. You got the Bears probably in, Packers probably in, Detroit fighting to get in at this point. So, and then you have your one team coming out of the South, and that's a given right there. So you got one out of the East, one out of the South, and then everyone else is making up with it with these tough divisions. So, I mean, going forward, I think the AFC would be deeper with the level of teams in the playoff mix for them. The NFC, I think, is more top heavy, where the AFC is you're going to have battling games week after week in the playoffs. NFC, I think you got your top two or three, and then the other teams I don't think are going to push past them.
And in terms of the Niners, what do you think? Like, what do they need to work on?
Staying healthy, getting some, all the guys on the field at the same time. And that's a continuity problem that they've had. But like I said, it's like they just keep winning games. They keep pushing forward. So it's been a great job, I would say, by that coaching staff this year.
It has been, and Robert Slott's coming over. He's a bad head coach, but he's doing a good job in terms of being a defensive coordinator. So we'll see about the Niners. That was a solid win for them, and it was the Tennessee Titans, but hey, people lose to them all the time, so you can't just look past them. Solid win for them, and we'll see how the Niners go down the stretch. As I said earlier, if the playoffs started today, the Niners would be in the sixth position. They at Indianapolis, not an easy game. Chicago, and then Seattle. So it's going to be interesting to see about Seattle and the San Francisco 49ers. But yeah, three teams are definitely coming out of the NFC West. We're here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. I'm here with Kevin Midgette, running through week 15, and then we're getting ready to preview week 16. I mean, these weeks are going way too fast around the National Football League. The good thing about this week, no buys, so there were a lot of games to go over. Kevin, before we get to all our favorite stuff, how are your 10 fantasy teams doing? Are you in the playoffs?
The one that only really matters to me, to be honest, it's like you're not supposed to have a favorite kid. Yeah, I got a favorite kid when it comes to my fantasy teams. For the third year in a row, I have finished the top four in scoring for the year and have not made the playoffs. This thing's fixed. I don't know what it is. I'm getting jobbed left and right. And I love the fact too. The last week of the season, I had New England on a bye, and I got 3 Patriots players. That helped out a lot too.
It's crazy because in the league that counts, and yeah, I'm only in two, but my the league that counts, with the cheddar cheese is it's trending like Nate and I are going to play in the finals, but his team's pretty loaded. And then he was smiling next to me because everyone knows I'm a Patrick Mahomes guy, and he was my quarterback on all my teams, and he gets hurt. So now I'm scrambling to find a quarterback to compete, and I'm hoping that Bijan and JSN can carry me to the title. But what do you think in terms of the injuries between Mahomes, Micah Parsons, Devontae Adams, and then you had Christian Watson get hurt for the Green Bay Packers? Which injury is the worst?
The worst, I believe, is Micah Parsons because Green Bay has a chance to do something in the postseason. We knew Kansas City was done for the most part. Well, most of us besides Lloyd knew that Kansas City was probably done. They were holding on. But Christian Watson, that guy gets hurt every year. He gets hurt usually a couple times a year, so that's not really a big deal. I think the second biggest one is Devontae Adams, though. The one thing is Stafford at least leaned on Parkinson, the tight end, had a couple touchdowns to him. But Devontae Adams, he was having a really good season with the Rams right now. So that will definitely affect them come postseason time if he's not right.
Yeah, that is true, and we will jump over to this game. I almost forgot it, but we need to. Speaking of the Rams, they're the number one seed now in the NFC, 11-3 over the Detroit Lions, 8-6, 41-34. In this game, Matthew Stafford is looking really like he's in the MVP. I think it's Stafford, Josh Allen, and then you can throw Bo Nix in there. Now, I think they're the three guys. Maybe you can, if you think anybody else, you can throw them in there. But Stafford, 368 yards passing, 2 TDs, only 1 interception. Leads the NFL with 37 TDs and only 5 interceptions. Doing a great job. What do we think about the Rams, and is the MVP Matthew Stafford?
I think the MVP is Matthew Stafford's. I think he's done enough. And there's another one, Drake May is getting mentioned as well, but I just think Drake May and Bo Nix, it's too young and too early for them. They're not putting up even the numbers that Matthew Stafford's putting up. Josh Allen, he's that perennial guy. He's always going to be mentioned. He's the defending MVP right now, so he's going to be in the mix, no doubt. But I think this is Stafford's award to take home. Now, playing this game against Seattle this week coming up, though, that's going to be interesting right there because when they played a couple weeks ago, we were making our predictions for the game. And I remember saying this, I was like, if they were playing in Seattle, I'd pick Seattle. Since they're playing in Los Angeles, I'll take the Rams. And that's going to be the same for this week coming up. I'm going to vice versa it. Seattle playing at home, I would take them over the Rams.
It's going to be interesting because Seattle's played so well in terms of their defense. Leonard Williams, Ernest Jones the fourth, and Reek Woolen in the back with that group, young group there. Mike McDonald's done a great job in terms of that defense, and it's interesting because McDonald, as well as Jesse Minter, they're from that hardball Michigan tree, and we'll see how that turns out. Speaking of the Michigan tree, I got to get your take on Jerome Moore at Michigan. What is he doing, man? He ruined a good thing, man. I just couldn't believe that storyline.
I'll put it to you this way. All right. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to have a relationship that I shouldn't have with somebody I work with. And then not only am I going to do it for a year, I'm going to get blown out about it to my boss. So now I'm losing 12 to 14 million dollars. Oh, also, now my wife and 3 kids find out also. All right, so I'm having the worst day of my life probably, right? No, I'm going to compound this and magnify this by 1,000. I'm going to grab some butter knives and run into this girl's apartment right now and do that. What are you? That's a thought process of this guy. It's like, don't you have a friend you can call and be like, hey, maybe that's a bad idea. Hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. The guy had everything and he just blew it, man, right in front of us all to see. There's a part of me, it's just like, you just wanted to be like, what were you thinking, man? There was no way out of that.
Yeah, and yeah, TJ Hushmanzada on the radio, or his show, he was like, I don't care, he deserves it. Like, it's his fault. He had a nice wife. He knew what he was doing. Yeah, he blew it up.
Yep.
And then you know what the calling card was? He gave her that 300% raise on the university's dime, and that just sent out all the, I guess he got audited by the finance department on that one. They're like, wait, all of a sudden she goes from a quality control assistant to head recruiter or whatever. So it's just an awful story, and unfortunately, Sharon Moore, I just don't think he'll ever get another job. Now, the thing is, I think Jesse Mintor, who's the defensive coordinator for the Chargers, I think he may be in line to come back to Michigan and get that job. So we'll see how they kind of, turn out there. But I just wanted to get Kevin's take on that. And we hit on it a little bit, but Fernando Mendoza wins the Heisman. Is that almost like a blessing or a curse in terms of winning the Heisman? We saw this year that Travis Hunter got hurt, and we could think of so many Heisman busts in the past. Guys that like Ty Detmer, that was a great college player, Andre Ware. I could go on, and they didn't do anything in the pros. So, is it good to win a Heisman or not?
It's good just for the fact that you're going to be immortalized forever. Either you're going to be called the Heisman bust, or they show the portraits every year. Of the past Heisman winners. And you get to see some of these guys. Oh, there's Flutie right there. Oh, Tim Tebow. All these guys. Archie Griffin, man, you get to see him every year. That two-time winner. Then now that carries some clout right there. But as far as the NFL goes, guys in the NFL don't care about that. If anything, it is going to bring more pressure on them. You're going to end up on a bad team. So, I mean, good for the University of Indiana, though. First Heisman winner ever for that school. So, good for them.
Yeah, and it's good for them winning that award. And Mendoza seems like a real nice kid, and we'll see how he does in the National Football League. But too often it's like a Gino Torretta type. He wins it, and then he just doesn't do anything in the pros. So it's a popularity contest, much like the NFL MVP. A lot of times you're scratching your head. You're like, oh, how'd that guy win that award? But we'll see. The Heisman. I did attend a couple years. I got to be there. I was there the year Reggie Bush won the award, but didn't, and then they gave it back to him. I was there in New York City, and then I was there for the Troy Smith one. And yeah, you talk about a guy that didn't do anything in the pros. So Troy Smith gets an award from Ohio State, but good college story. But he was not a good pro quarterback. I think he bounced around, and then next thing he's out of the league. But that's what happens. A lot of times with these college hotshots, the National Football League, you got to produce every week, and it's so competitive. So we're here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. I know everybody in terms of each week we talk a little bit about what happened gambling wise. The home teams were 9-6. There were 8 covers. There was 1 non-cover, and then there were 6 outright underdog winners. I mean, Minnesota, Atlanta, Washington, New Orleans, Denver, and then the Chargers. So, and the overs, there were 9 overs. So is Vegas losing money, or what's going on here?
Vegas is always winning money, Lloyd. They're always winning money. So, I'm not worried too much about them. It was just myself looking at it. I thought there were going to be close games, so I leaned on teams that were getting points. It's like, all right, give me a couple points against you. Like New Orleans plus 2.5. I'll take New Orleans on that one. It was just certain ones that just stood out. And you're getting these really pivotal games at the end of the season where they're going to be closer games. Some teams are going to tighten up and they're going to, shrink up against even like a bad team because they're not, they feel the pressure of trying to close it out to get that postseason position. So yeah, I tell you what, I want to know who the one gambler is out there. And it's like, if he's out there, I wish him all the best in the world, who had a ticket with Kirk Cousins throwing 3 touchdowns and Kyle Pitts Sr. catching 3 touchdowns. The payout on that had to be a monstrosity, man. I mean, you need a wheelbarrow for all that money.
Yeah, it's crazy. I did not think no one saw that cousin Kirk Cousins, and we'll see where Cousins ends up next year. Maybe he'll be the Raiders quarterback. I don't know. Imagine him and Mendoza together. They'll go get a glass of milk and read the Bible together or something. So, uh, in terms of everybody's favorite thing, game ball winners and lackey. I'm going to go with game ball winner first, and I'll go with the Atlanta Falcons, but not Kirk Cousins. I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson. He was great in that 29-28 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were underdogs of 4.5 points in this one. He had 19 rushes, 93 yards, one TD, eight receptions for 82 yards. And selfishly, of course, he scored 29.5 points for my fantasy team. But I was on a bye this week. Who'd you have, Kevin?
I'm going to take the low hanging fruit on this for my game ball. Trevor Lawrence, 6 total touchdowns, taking the Jacksonville Jaguars from a couple weeks ago to a team that we thought might have been on the fringe end of not making the playoffs to now becoming a team that could possibly win the division. Trevor Lawrence has done and stepped up into a role that we have not seen him do before with such authority. So, as much as it was easy, low hanging fruit with the 6 touchdowns, he deserves my game ball.
Yeah, it's interesting because I went with Bijan, but a lot of people were like, and Nate was like, Bo Nix, come on. And, like Bo Nix played incredible against the Green Bay Packers. 302 yards, four TDs in that game. And then I loved his comment at the end of the game. They're like, you guys are underdogs. He said, well, I guess we were the overdogs. And they got it done. Big win for the Broncos. They're now in the driver's seat in the AFC. So I give him a shout out, as well as Josh Allen, who played so well. And we talk about Myers and his 6 field goals. How good is Puka Nakua too? 9 receptions, 181. You have him on any of your teams?
Not the ones that matter.
Yeah. So those are some shout outs. Lackey, Joe Burrow. I got to give it to him. He was just terrible. He said he's not happy and he didn't look interested. 25 to 39, 225, zero touchdowns, two interceptions, and that pick six to Van Noy where he'd hand off to Gilman. 24-0 shutout loss to the Ravens.
It's a good one. My lackey of the week has to be because it officially finally came down. It goes to the Washington Commanders organization. Why the hell would you bring Jaden Daniels after missing all that time back to play just so he could get hurt and beat up a little more? And now you're saying you're going to shut him down for the year. You should have had him shut down from get go. You shouldn't have had him try to come back and play. If you hadn't learned anything from the RG3 experience, you're never going to. It's like, so for them finally agreed and to shut down Jaden Daniels, they get my lackey of the week.
Yeah, it's crazy how that worked with Washington.
Jaden Daniels, they got him. They can't have him playing out there, and that left elbow, you don't want him getting hurt anymore. And hopefully in the offseason, I'll say Jaden Daniels, Devontae Smith, and Bryce Young get in the lifting program, start drinking some shakes. Like Willie Beeman, inflate your chest, drink your metric. They need to
Steamin' Willie Beeman.
Yeah, they need to put on some size, man. So that's our lackeys and game ball winners for the week. We're going to jump to previewing Week 16 here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 109, the Game Coast Sports Digital Network. All right, Thursday night. This is right off the bat. You got the Rams 11-3 at the Seattle Seahawks. I know you kind of talked about a little bit. Uh, I'm really looking at the Seahawks to win this one. They're at home. The Rams, everybody's trying to say, okay, they've turned the corner, but I still think they're a little inconsistent. And the Seahawks are finding ways to win. The key, obviously, Sam Darnold. So I'll go with the Seahawks in a close one.
Yeah, like I said earlier, play with whoever's the home team. I would take in that matchup right there. But I agree with you. Seattle's got to find a way to start converting these touchdowns. You can't sit there and kick field goals all day. You got to sit there and put some points on the board. The crooked ones on the sixes.
I agree with you. The Green Bay there's two Saturday games this week. Green Bay Packers 9-4-1. No Micah Parsons. Jordan Love he was okay. He was a little inconsistent in that Denver game. He was hot, then he wasn't. They're at the Chicago Bears, and you know what? I've always said I'm not buying the stock of the Bears, etc. Caleb Williams, but I'm going to go with the Bears in this one. Even though Green Bay won a couple weeks ago, I just think that Parsons injury is just too big, and the Bears are kind of turning the corner.
Yeah, you know my thoughts on the USC quarterbacks, but Yeah, I'm gonna lean with Chicago on this one, to be honest. Green Bay has definitely been one of the typical teams that you don't know what you're getting one week to the next. But Chicago has been steady. They've won games. They've beaten good teams. Also, it's not like they're just beating a bunch of beer cans. So in this situation where Chicago should win this game, now we're going to see what Caleb Williams shows up. See if he can win that big division game.
Yeah, and they'll probably win Manon Guy and Swift and DJ Moore had a good game this week, though. I expect those guys to have big ones, and I don't think Watson's going to step up in terms of his chest injury. He may not play in this game, and then the other receivers. They the Packers have a ton of receivers, but they have no receivers. So it's a situation we'll see. Last game we'll look at for the evening, the Philadelphia Eagles, 9-5. They're going down I-95 to face the Washington Commanders. I think the Eagles take care of business. As one Mariota took care of business and they beat the Giants this week. But I think Jalen Hurts, they found the right recipe to beat a bad team, and the Eagles take care of business against Washington.
I agree with you. Philadelphia, they had the slump buster game. They got their heads right a little bit again. It was set there, shift and refocus and come back strong against Washington. I think they take care of Washington, win that division.
Bonus game, Jacksonville at Denver. I think that Denver's defense is going to get after Trevor Lawrence. He's played so well, and I think that Denver wins this one. It's going to be cold out there, and Jacksonville coming from Florida. I think that's too much for them. Denver continues to march to the number one seed in the AFC.
Yeah, I think Sean Payton's going to have those guys ready. I think that's going to be a tough matchup for Jacksonville because Jacksonville's been playing so well also. But I think it's one of those games where Denver can take him. It's going to be a close game. I guarantee it's a field goal or less game. But I think Denver pulls it out.
All right, Kevin and I agree on that one. Another great week here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coast Sports Digital Network. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you next week.